Once upon a time, comedian Steve Weyland and his mate, fellow motorbike enthusiast Mike Tucker, decided to restore classics from the 70s, 80s and 90s, which started with the iconic Suzuki Katana in Series 1, and it was filmed and edited by Theresa Dolman, and it was called Two Blokes and a Motorbike. Two of the makers of the program join us now. Welcome, Steve and Theresa, but you're not a bloke.
Oh, sorry. I did my best.
The other bloke couldn't
No,
make
the
it.
other bloke couldn't make it. Was sorry. So
And
you
why
got up
did
with
they
me.
send you, Theresa?
Well, I did film it all and help put it all
Exactly.
together. So I thought,
We couldn't have made it without her. Malcolm.
Okay, so the program has already gone to air a couple of times on community television.
Correct.
yes.
And it actually met with a wonderful response because anyone that was interested in how things go together, particularly motorbikes, was a real eye-opener. So why?
Why? We had already restored a couple of bikes between us, Mike and I, and I just happened upon the idea one day that I should combine some of my past skills. I've done acting and comedy, etc., and motorcycle restoration. Film it, put it on film. No one else is doing it. No one else is doing a show about motorcycles in Australia. So I thought, why don't we try something new?
And so you said, well, here's a camera, just make it happen.
Pretty well, I found it a bit difficult to run back from the camera, setting the lights, run the camera.
Oh, I do all that here. What are you talking about?
Oh, well, I'd
It's just-
already done.
We needed help.
Yeah, I'd helped him out with 2 previous Fringe shows where I'd done the help with the filming and the tech side of
Technical
it.
side, yeah.
So I said, I'll come along and help. So we started off with, we had 1 camera and the mobile phone, and we ended up with 1 camera, 2 mobile phones and a GoPro. We really struck
High
out.
tech, high
And
tech.
2
No,
lights.
but this is the amazing thing that's happened
Yeah.
with TV and filming stuff. You know, you can film on a phone now.
Yeah.
And quite often we use some phone footage on this program because the phones now have such great cameras in them. I mean, you don't want to, well, they're making movies on phones as well, but having the real stuff is great.
Yeah, it'd be great. But
yeah.
we went with the basics because that's all we had.
But that would have given your show, what gave your show a real sort of edge, like a reality. This is something that's really happening, not staged for the camera, but actually happening.
It was actually happening.
Yeah.
And a few things went wrong, so we had little blooper reels at the end of each one as well.
Okay,
to add to the comedy side
that's
of it,
always
which Steve
fun.
would always do.
Yeah. So we've talked about the show, but you just briefly mentioned that you've done some acting and comedy work. So we may have seen you somewhere because you've done how many stand-up comedy bits?
Stand-up gigs, I've done over 300 locally. That's in the last 15 years or probably 20 years. There has been a slight
Break.
Hiatus, I
there's a
think.
hiatus because of COVID. COVID killed most of the
The comedy
the
stars.
venues and the
COVID
gigs
killed the
happening.
comedy stars.
It did. So I haven't done much since then. But prior to that, I did a comedy course years ago, and I went on
Yeah,
stage.
let's talk about that because we're talking about David, who I also knew very well, David Flanagan, and he ran comedy courses out of what
Comics
Comics
Comedy
Cellar.
Cellar.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Dave was one of the first sort of stand-up comedians here in South Australia that really made a name for himself.
Yes.
And was wise enough to pass it on, pass on his knowledge. You did the course
I
too.
did the course as
What
well.
did you both get out of doing that?
It was good because it sort of showed you more the fact that it's very funny to go out there and think, oh yes, I can do a big story, but which is fine if you're well known. But really you've got to work out your punchline and get the shortest way to get to the punchline and surprise your audience. And he taught us that.
Yep.
And yeah, it was really good. So I went out and did a few
They're
gigs
really
around
good comedians. It's like a laugh every 8 seconds.
as well. Exactly. Yeah.
That's something you picked up quite quickly in practice too.
Yeah.
I
Did you write everything first?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, and then
Prune, take out all the words you don't really need.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Dave taught us
That
that.
taught Dave.
Cut.
Yep.
We all understand that.
But I did the course a few years before Theresa, and I went on the stage there every Friday and Saturday night for about 3 years. I was a regular.
And did you
in the
have
lineup.
like a 5-minute bit that you extended slowly?
Yes, that's how you start and you work it out. I ended up with about 15 minutes or thereabouts of good stuff.
And what was your theme with the comedy you did?
It was just observational. It wasn't a theme as such. I just went from one thing to another.
But observing what? Family life or
No,
the
just
world
people
around
in
you?
general, the world around you, questioning things. Why is that
Right.
like that? And
Well, everyone's got a sort of I suppose, a gimmick line within what they're doing. Was that yours?
no, I had a lot of different lines. I had some the old wife material. Things like.
Oh, poor you.
Oh, the tattoo one was beautiful. Don't look at me,
Teresa's
honey.
not my wife.
No, he's not my husband.
I'm working on it for you.
But just, it's like I said, one of the lines, my wife, when we first met, had a really cute little butterfly tattoo on her bum cheek. Of course, now it's a fruit bat. That sort of stuff. And in the club, in comics, that was the sort of stuff that was eaten up by the audience. They
Yeah.
love that kind of humour.
Yeah.
It was a dinner and show, and a lot of work groups came in, and it was just, and we continued that down the track when we moved away from comics. I worked away with a bunch of guys called Comedy Underground, and we just did pubs and clubs around South Australia and got the same sorts of crowds, and it was just brilliant to go out and keep doing it.
Did you ever think that's what you would do when you were young?
No.
Did you have an ambition to be on stage when you were young?
Well, no, ironically, I started as a stuntman in the entertainment business.
Oh, okay.
Got a couple of feature films. I got a lead role in a radio play with the ABC when I was
That's
18.
always good for stunts.
Stunts was interesting. I doubled for Greg Rowe in Bluefin.
In Bluefin, okay.
Follow up to Stormboy.
Dived off a
Tuna
boat in Port Lincoln.
So that led to other work, and I decided acting was a safer way to go and probably more profitable. So I did some drama courses, and I got some TV commercials, and eventually did some theatre. There's no money in that, of course, but that's where I met Theresa
That's where we
in
met.
2009.
Yeah. We did
and,
Caught in
we've
the
done
Net and
a few
more
productions
after that.
Yeah. But,
Well, your background, so where did picking up the phone and the camera come from?
I like to try something new. And I said, look, the first time he said it, I said, well, look, I'll film it. Let's see how we go. And then I started working more backstage stuff. So I thought, to me, I'd like to be able to do a little bit of everything. I've done backstage. I started with theatre backstage.
Well, yes, let's
before
talk
I
about
ventured
that.
on stage.
Well, you're part of a very well-established community theatre company here as well.
Yeah, I'm the president of Two Players Theatre Company.
And they've been around for how long?
1976 we started. So, and I've been with them since 1993.
Sorry to say I remember that. But they've done everything from pantos to straight plays to comedies to
Oh yes, every year we do 5 adult productions plus a youth and junior in the middle of the year, and traditional pantomime every year.
What's interesting about that though is that it is still a community group,
Oh, definitely.
and I
Yeah.
guess you're always looking for people to be part of it, but not so much on the stage but to work backstage as well, because a lot of people don't realise that's a great place to start,
It
because you
is.
can learn from watching.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. I mean, I learnt a lot of things through theatre. Very often I'll go home and I say I'm going to paint a wall, so I'll test the colours out on a set and then go home and have this lovely suede
Well,
wallpaper.
that's the other thing, being a part of it from every perspective.
Yes. Yeah, I do the wallpapers I learnt how to wallpaper. I can hang a door. Don't let the nails fool you.
this is the president, by the way. Does the wallpapering. But,
Well, that's how you become
You do
those
but
things,
everything.
really.
The front of house. And I do the
Amateur
box
theatre.
office and organise the seats, and I'm actually directing a play later in the year. So,
And what's that done for you? What's that given you, do you think?
I think gives you a lit on life. Keeps you young. You can be any age you like on stage. You can be anybody you like on stage. And if you're having a really bad day, you can get to the theatre and become someone else. And whether I'm Snivel the henchman or whether I'm playing the French world, it doesn't matter. You just take it on board, like, I'll do that one now, and change your accent and go.
Oh,
through
so
it.
you've got a bit of accent under your belt as well.
Oh, I do my best, yeah.
Is that because a lot of the plays have had a English influence? Have you done the same?
I've done a few
Oh,
of the
yes.
plays. The farces that I've done there are they're all English
They're all
classes.
English classes, the Ray Coonies, and our audience love them. That's the type of thing our audience enjoy coming to see,
Well-
so that's what we give them.
Well, you're dead right about that. If
Yeah.
you're doing stuff nobody wants to see, you're doing it alone. So
Exactly.
And you do have a very good reputation.
Occasionally we try and give them something a bit different to see what they think, and they will have the little comment voting slips. So
Right.
they vote, the audience vote.
Right, and that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I very much approve that. Look, we're chatting about those parts of your career, but we haven't talked yet really about Two Blokes and a Motorbike.
Sorry.
So we're coming back in a tick and we'll talk about that and some of the funny things that have happened. See you in a moment. Steve and Theresa are my guests because they've both made a program, although we're missing one of the men,
Yes.
called,
Two Blokes and a Motorbike.
and you were one of the blokes.
One of the blokes.
You weren't
Yep.
the motorbike, were you?
No.
but
No.
what? No. But we just found out something fascinating about Theresa, that she can tie a lolly snake into a knot just using her tongue. And how'd you learn to do this?
Well, years ago, we back in 2000, my partner works on solar cars and he's a professor at Mawson Lakes. And we had to drive around Australia with the Aurora Solar Car team. So I'm driving for 22 days around Australia. And so
Tying lolly snakes in a knot.
I got bored and I thought I was eating lolly snakes to keep myself awake and drinking iced coffee. And I managed to work out how to tie a snake in a knot in my mouth.
There's a party trick I've never heard of. But
No,
good
never
luck
had to do
with
it
that.
since.
If only we had a snake here to be able to tie
don't think I can do
in
it
a
now.
knot. And
That was
we
back-
do.
That was back in the year 2000, so it's 24 years ago.
Okay, no, I won't
yeah.
ask you to do that. But the thought is wonderful. Okay, getting back to the motorbikes. Where did your interest in motorbikes begin?
I needed transport when I was a teenager, and I was offered a second-hand scooter that Kickstarter didn't work. I had to push start it everywhere, and as I was broke, that was my best option. So
Hey, there's the alliteration, and a broke motorbike. Two blokes and a broke motorbike.
Oh, we should start that.
So
way.
anyway.
look, that's a new series. Look,
there you
a
go,
broke motorbike.
Yeah, I can do that.
Sorry, I
But
interrupted
no, that's
you.
all right. That's all right. I went from that to real motorcycles, and that was my only transport for my first 5 or 6 years on the road before I got a car licence.
So
actually.
you learnt to take them apart by necessity, more or less.
I didn't do a lot of that back then. No.
Right.
What happened from there is I had other jobs, working full time, etc. That was my transport. I ended up getting a job in a motorcycle dealership as a salesman. That's where it all started. And I ended up spending 24 years selling bikes in different dealerships.
So that's how you really learned how they work.
I learned a lot about them in there, with working with the mechanics. And I used to ride the trade-ins and evaluate and work out what we needed to spend on them before we could resell them and that sort of thing. So I learned pretty quickly about bikes' problems, what to look for.
Is it a sort of a brain thing though? Is it like you can look at this and think, oh, that's not doing that, so that means that's wrong there, or that's worn there, or
Yeah, and that just comes
is that
from
what it
experience.
is?
The more you
so you're
you
being
do.
like a doctor of motorbikes.
Sort of, but I haven't got the skills to rebuild them. Mike is more into that, and
Right.
Mike again has.
Were you the comedy
self-taught.
sidekick?
Well, yeah, Mike. I mean, I've known Mike from
Yes,
Yep.
you say, yes.
from the bike trade. I met him as he started working with me as a salesman, and that's going back about 35 years ago. And he just recently, in the last 10 years, has started dabbling more and more in the mechanical side of it and putting them together. So we both sort of combined our skills a bit, I guess, and we came up with this concept. And people like it. It seems to.
Well,
to be-
that's a very important part of this, because I've talked to a lot of people on this program who wouldn't normally get to talk about why they made their programs or how they came to make the program, because how is important, because you've really got to finance them yourself. You've got to have either a sponsor or you've got to have a passion to make it happen. You obviously had the passion, but
Yeah.
I know you'd like to make another series.
We'd love to. We'd love to.
How long did it take you to make the first one?
2 years.
And why did it take so long?
Because it was all part-time. It was weekends.
You shot a bit here and a bit there.
A bit here, a bit there. It took me 6 months to edit it all together after we...
Yeah, well, that's
Theresa
the
had
other
helped.
thing. You shot
Yes.
it, you edited it, and
Theresa helped with the editing
I
too.
helped with the
She's very
editing
good with
as
the
well
technical
and
things.
do the
Yeah.
technical bits, which is something I learnt as I went along. And of course, we had COVID to cope with in the middle of that.
fabulous, yes.
So that,
I mean, that's the beauty of community television. That's why it was so important that the government has kept the stations on air, and hopefully there'll be more popping up around Australia in the future, because we're getting so much American stuff, and now with the download sites, we're not getting a lot of stuff that's real for where we live.
exactly, yeah. I mean, years ago, if you remember, Anne Walsh used to be live when I was on her show once with Carpet. But it's now everything is sort of either imported from interstate or...
Well, it's also hearing our own voice, you know, and a subject like this for a lot of guys and possibly girls that like bikes, what we're hearing is your thoughts in your dialect, if you like, and we can identify with that. And also the sort of educational side of it as well, understanding that this goes with this and that makes that work and so on. Was it hard to find the parts, or did you sort of improvise a lot?
Well, again, with Mike's experience in sourcing parts and being familiar with these particular bikes, we could get a lot of things online from overseas. There's genuine parts are still available, but we had to track down a few things that weren't. And at the end of the day, we tried to make the best bike we could with what was available, and we didn't really cut corners on costs. If we had to spend a bit more on the right part, we would.
Right.
And that's what you have to do now to get the right part. They cost a lot of money.
Who got the bike in the end?
A gentleman in Geelong owns that bike now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he sold it online. And,
so he's got a TV show made about the manufacture of his bikes, or no, the reconstitution. Must be another word that means more about putting a bike back
Reconstruction.
Resurrecting.
Resurrection. The resurrection.
The wrecks we start with sometimes, it really is bringing them back to life. But it's also, getting these back on the road means a bit to Mike and I, because we were familiar with them when we were younger, the models we're dabbling with, and it's nice to get them back to their former glory.
Absolutely.
Get them back out there. Instead of seeing them rot in someone's backyard, if we can get it back up.
Well, we're just recently talking about the Priscilla bus from the movie, Priscilla, and the fact that's been rotting in a field that changed hands of ownership of the property, and the guy that I think I know what that is, and there was a bit of a call out to find what happened to it, and that's coming here to the Birdwood Motor.
Really?
Wonderful.
What's it called?
Birdwood Museum.
Museum. Yeah. That's the word I was looking for. And it's being done up as an exhibit in the National Motor Museum. So I don't know if there's a National Bike Museum, but you never know.
Well, I mean, we didn't build it for that purpose.
They've got motorbikes too.
The other thing too, I mean, as you say, it gets our voice out there. I was a bit frustrated in that there were no Australian shows about this sort of thing. Even cars, there's not a great deal of car building. There's an enormous number of American cars and American chopper shows that we can sort of watch and appreciate, but they're not, you can't relate to them as much as something that's made here. And it was good to do it locally. We ended up getting a Imara Films. We had Victoria and Adam Morgan got on board at the end and tried to promote it around the country. They tried to get some sponsors on board and pushed it as hard as they could, but unfortunately, in the format it's in, it wasn't of the standard that they wanted to.
Well, there's your challenge for the next one, isn't it?
Well, it is, but to do it, we need to get a professional camera crew, people that know what they're doing, good editors, etc. Well, people that would take probably a tenth of the time to do it.
You are talking about these people. I thought you were going to say a tenth of the money, and then you're talking about these people.
But it is very time-consuming doing it part-time. Get home from work at night and do some more editing, and
But having said that, this show is crewed by students here at the university, and we've been making this program for 13 years. And the amount of people that have gone through here and are now out doing exactly what you're saying is phenomenal. And it's for them, it's a great opportunity to actually invest their knowledge that they've got at uni into bringing something together. Because it's not just about the shooting, like we were talking about the editing. How do you light it properly? Do you script it? How do you put that together? How do you make it all make sense? That's what everyone's learning in a place like this. And they're looking for those opportunities. Now, maybe you haven't got any money to start with, but then money can grow out of that and then you get a chance to pay them.
Yeah, a lot of things we do, we were learning as we were going along.
Yeah.
You know, all of a sudden there was one part where we realised a lot of the filming, Mike had a calendar in the background. And I didn't think it was one that should be appearing on the show. So I learnt how to get rid of the calendar.
Oh, good on you.
So there's no calendar.
Yes,
In fact, in one of the calendars I put a picture of Steve as a joke, so I figured if anyone ever spots it, he's on the calendar.
There were little things like a clock on the wall, which, as editors know, can be
well, our
giveaway.
clock on the wall is very clever because it has no numbers on it. It just says our time clock.
Very good idea.
There it is, nicely. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And our floor manager made that more or less as a joke. And we've had it on the set ever since.
Very nice.
No, look, we're going to take a short break because we're running out of time fast, and you must know that feeling.
Oh, yes.
And we'll be back in a moment to talk to these lovely people about maybe the future of two men and even a lady on a bike. Who knows? Back in a tick. Our guests have been Steve and Theresa. Steve, who was appearing on, what's the show?
Two blokes and a motorbike.
There's got to be a comedy routine there somewhere.
It's got to be.
The comedy, are you still comedianing?
Am I? Well, I haven't done much since COVID, unfortunately. It sort of killed a lot of the demand for live comedy for a year or two. So I've been concentrating.
It's slowly
on other
coming back,
things.
but it is slow.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's commenting, just whilst people wanted to get back out, straight after all the restrictions went, everyone came out. Now they're staying at home again.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's also because they discovered downloadable TV.
Yeah, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, it's nice to have downloadable when that's your last resort.
When it's raining and it's too cold to go out.
Exactly, but live theatre's better.
But the other thing is, even with a motorbike, you know, to feel the air in your face and all of that stuff, it's not quite the same as driving in a car or sitting at home on the couch.
Oh, well, no.
So it's getting out and following your dreams too, because you've done that. And hopefully for you both, or all three of you, if you're going to keep working with them,
I hope
that
so.
you'll have the opportunity to do that again. Because that's one of the things that we wanted to sort of say in this interview.
Yes.
We know the program's been very successful. Just a matter of somebody saying, hey, I can give you a hand there.
Well, we have the bikes. We've got some bikes lined up that we can go ahead with. We just need
Make it and they will come. Isn't
We
that
just need to make it.
Isn't that the...
And he does write the scripts while we're building them, or while they're building them,
You
to
mean
include
you're making it
humour.
up as you go along?
No, he writes the scripts to include the humour as well. So there's
Right.
comedy in there.
So the comedy has worked for you. But because you did the same course with Dave Flanagan,
Yes.
have you done the comedy bit?
Oh, I've been doing stand-up, but I stopped. I preferred the camaraderie of a group, which is why I went back to Tea Tree Players.
I know, I understand that
Yeah.
completely. It's a family thing, isn't it?
It is.
Did you find a little family making the show?
I'll make it. Yes, we saw so much
making
of
the
each
show.
other.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
There are a lot of moments in the show that shouldn't have happened. Things that happened that we didn't capture at all, unfortunately. But those that we did, we put as bloopers at the end of the show.
Well, we've
Some
looked
things
at a
went
couple
wrong,
of
but,
those during this show. So, look, I just want to thank you for coming in talking about this, because we need to encourage more people to make more program for community television.
Yes.
Because it's about our community. So thanks again.
Well, thank you.
So
for having us
until
on.
next time on Our Time, you might have a good idea, you never know. And hopefully we'll see that on community television in the future. So until next time on Our Time, keep yourself nice till then. Bye.
Bye.